Here we are. Hello, I'm Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram, and this is fucking talking shit with Eagle, episode 591. Hopefully, you guys have had a great day. I sure have. Got a great guest for us tonight, Dab Hunter. How you doing tonight? You want to tell us how you're doing, and of course, where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm doing amazing. Just another good winter evening, in Arizona. And you can find me on Instagram at the Dab Hunter or Dab Hunter 2022. Just be prepared. There's some adult style content, I guess, included with I guess put a little render on it. Like a parental advisory on it, I guess.
Right at. Well, that's definitely very interesting. So, what are you smoking on tonight?
I am smoking on some fire rosin that I got. I don't actually know which strain it is. The strain was on the bottom, but I touched it too many times to wiped it off. And then I'm also smoking on some fire diamonds. These are from this pretty big company here in Phoenix. It's actually the guy who owns this company or runs this MPX is what they're called, and makes these diamonds. He actually used to be the secretary at this marketing firm that I worked for, back before I was doing cannabis on a regular basis. And then all of a sudden, after that business went out of business, cannabis started getting big. And at the time he was just a weed dealer for all of us. And now he's running one of the biggest companies in the country of concentrate makers, which is kind of cool. It's kind of random, but yeah, he makes really nice looking diamonds. If you're into BHO, it's pretty decent. I pretty much like to smoke everything. What do you prefer smoking?
I smoke more flower than anything, to be honest with you. I go through phases with dabs, but more flower than anything.
Yeah, I like flower too. Honestly, it just depends. Flower just definitely if I start smoking flower, it's time for me to take a nap soon. I definitely get a real body fry from smoking flower. So it's nap time. I can only smoke flower at night pretty much. What are you growing? What strains you got growing over there?
Right now, I've got a few testers going, basically from Med Grower 1, some Primal Punch times Gelato, and a few other crosses he's got. I've also got some testers from Empire Breeding Co., Smiley's Gardens, and Maui Gold Genetics. So all testers in the garden, probably something you've never heard of yet, but hopefully someday soon you will.
Yeah, testers are the best, honestly, because you just kind of never know what you're gonna get. It reminds me the first time I was growing was I was only 15, and I ordered weed online out of High Times magazine. This was back in 2007. 2005, I think. I ordered some seeds out of High Times magazine, and they came in this Zippo. And the Zippo sat at my house for 3 weeks, where I was just kind of oh, I got ripped off. I don't know, what the fuck, no seeds came. I ordered them. They were supposed to come in from Amsterdam. They never came in. Just this random fucking lighter came in. And my friend opened up the lighter, and the seeds were inside the lighter. And I didn't even know what strain they were or what it was in there, what I was going to do with these magical beans that I just got. But I was hoping maybe I would be able to make a little bit of money off of them because I was 14 and, living on my own. So
It's a pretty pretty early go at growing there. So when did cannabis actually come into play? When was the first time you smoked? If
Yeah.
14 you're growing, I would
Yes.
think a little bit earlier, right?
Yeah. So I actually didn't really like it's funny, I never really was like a consumer until I was an adult mostly. Like I had smoked a couple times, but I didn't really like love how weed made me feel. I think I like took a zong hit or something like when I was like 13 or 14 and I was like asleep on the bathroom floor for like 45 minutes. So I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be smoking weed. But one of my friends was like in school for botany at the time, and he was staying in the same apartment complex as me. And he was the one that was like, well, like if you need to make money, you know, the best thing for you to do is just grow some weed. None of the kids at your school are going to know any different. Like, might as well just, you know, grow something up and just sell it to them. And it was probably the best advice someone gave me, I guess. I went to like kind of a rich people's school, so all the kids kind of had a little bit of money. So I, before I was selling weed to them, I was actually working at this like clothing company, Hollister clothing company, and I would like take the clothes from there and I would resell them to the kids at my school from my trunk. Which like now, like obviously I know is totally illegal, and like as an adult, you're like, don't do that shit. But like when I was a kid, I was like, oh yeah, I'm a business person. And then it just went from that to weed pretty much.
So that's kind of funny, to be honest with you. So did you ever give growing a second chance, or how did the first time turn out?
The first time turned out
Were you able
okay.
to make it work?
Think like it turned out okay. I was able to make it work. I did get like a couple ounces out of I think I had like 12 plants in my closet. I got like a couple ounces out of all of those plants. But I mean, I was able to sell them, and then I ended up growing. I've grown like multiple times throughout the years. So like I've grown like where it's been really successful, and I've grown where it's been like not the best, you know. You're just like, oh shit, what is this? I guess I'll just be smoking this myself and giving it away to my friends. But I think like it's just all a matter of like how much attention you're able to pay to the plants, you know, like how much love and attention can you give them? Do you have good IPM? Because that's like been my biggest issue, is like just not being able to like take care of them properly. That was like the issue at Subs Grow too. It was just like how to control our pests.
This can be a huge issue, that's for sure. Uh, so I guess there's a lot in between here. So what happened, after that first kind of grow there? Where did life kind of progress with cannabis? Some of us actually kind of smoke, some of us kind of hustle. So where did cannabis kind of fall in line, in the later teenage years?
So I actually, one of the guys that like runs a company out in, I wasn't able to grow anymore because I wasn't like living in my own place. As like when I first was an adult, I was doing some other business, marketing business or whatever. But I always like have sold weed. Like I think that like basically my first time not selling weed was probably like 2013. So from that entire time, from the time I was 14 till the time I was 24, like I was literally selling weed. I didn't know anything else. Like it was like basically like safety net, you know. So one of I actually, which was not, it's nice because like it gave me like invitations to a lot of the people that are like really big in the industry now, but back then they were just like secret underground growers, not really, you know, breaking the law, doing illegal shit. And now they're like running multi-million-dollar companies. So it's kind of cool because like I would just get my weed from people. Like back then, like ounces were running like $420 for an ounce. It's nothing like that right now, not in this fucking market. But like it was like that when I was a kid. So I would like go, I would get an ounce from this guy who was growing he had a music studio. He was growing weed underneath his music studio. I'd go get an ounce for him for $130 and I would sell it to like all my little high school friends. Kids that I met in high school or whatever for like $20 a gram. And that's like pretty much how I hustled, like up until I was a mom, pretty much, I guess. And then like weed started to become legal here, you know, we got medical. And that's been nice. It's been like a good like change, because when we first got medical, then like I started to be able to like get like jobs in this industry, like, oh, okay, like I want to work for a dispensary, you know? So that was like pretty much how it started, like whenever it became legal when I was an adult. And then I started consuming because I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, like I think in like 2016. And I actually was like 235 pounds at that time. I was like a little bit overweight for my size. Like I'm only 5'5". So I was like struggling with like medical issues, weight issues, you know, all of that stuff. And the doctors were wanting to prescribe me all these crazy meds to like help me with like the potential side effects of RH. And I really didn't want to take any of that stuff. Like, I think I'm not alone when I say like, I don't think any of us like want to like be on some kind of pharmaceutical for the rest of our lives, or like be dependent on anything really, like if we can avoid it. So that's when I started smoking weed. My grandpa, actually, he's who got me to start smoking again. He's like a Navy. He was in the Navy. He actually passed away of cancer. He was doing cancer treatment at the time. And he was like, you know, don't take all the drugs they're prescribing you. It's their job to keep us on drugs, you know, like it's the medical industry's job. It's how they make money. So, you know, you should try cannabis, you know, try weed again. And sure enough, like I did. And like my whole life, it was just crazy. Like everything in my life, like totally like changed for the better. Like my health started to take like a turn for the better, and like just everything started to be more like feel more beneficial. I started to feel like, oh, okay, like I actually have like a direction that I can head in, and I can see how this has helped me. So how can I like extend it to like help other people? And at the time, like, no offense if you're like in a dispensary or whatever, or on a dispensary, at the time I like thought it was like at the dispensaries. I was just like, yeah, that's what I want to do. That's where I'm going to go. And I like went and got a job at the dispensary, and I kind of realized how like twisted that whole situation is, you know, how corrupted it is, and how much it's almost, you know, just like pharmaceutical times two, because we just change things and make them whatever we want to make them. And you know, don't give a shit if the product is up to par, or if it's making people sick, or what's going on. I kind of got like firsthand sight of like what was really going on behind the scenes at these dispensaries. And that's what led me to sub. I was like, he was like, come check out. I'm going to come to Arizona. I'm going to start a grow out there. It's going to be in a pool. It's going to be dope. You know, like you should come check it out, maybe work for us or whatever. That's pretty much how that happened. And like, I probably say like, I learned the most about growing from him, because before that, all the little times I had grown, I'd really just like winged it. One time I grew like without lights, like just moving the plant, moving the plant around, you know, to accommodate it. And it didn't really turn out that good, you know? So I learned like a lot about like just how to take care of plants properly, like, you know, how to just do things that are actually beneficial for them. That's actually going to make them grow and produce something worthwhile for you, you know? Before that, I was kind of just like, I don't know, just making whatever, anything, just throwing shit to the wall and see what sticks type of shit, I guess. Are there any products that you like really like to use for your plants or stuff you like to recommend?
Well, these days I'm back into soil. So as far as like products, nah, I'm back to the water only. Not the super soil, but soil, more soil type
Yeah,
recipe.
yeah.
But try to make things a little bit easier these days.
Yeah, I've seen people grow with so many different things, like so many different things. Like it's just crazy. Like I think someone was using like cocoa powder or something like that. One of the dispensaries was like, I've just heard like the most random crazy things that people have grown in. I mean, I'm honestly like, I would love to. I'm very curious to kind of see like where this industry is gonna go and like all the crazy stuff like we're gonna end up coming up with at one point or another.
I can't help but wonder a little bit about the dispensaries days there. So was there any kind of training, like as far as like terps and what terps do, anything like that to kind of pass on to the customers as
No,
far as training goes when
no,
you were hired in for the dispensary there?
that is such a fucking amazing question, because when I went to the dispensary, I literally didn't even know like the difference between, I never even heard like indica and sativa before. Like I had no idea what that meant, I don't think. Like I had no like concept of that. Like it was just like I just knew that there was weed. I knew that you could grow weed. I knew that you could do certain things, but I'd never like gotten into the details of weed. And then I got into the dispensary and it was kind of like all of these words I didn't understand. Like I had heard them before, some of them, but it was like fucking Chinese for me, It took me having to like hear things or people ask me things, and then I was like, oh no. And I worked for the dispensary back in like 2000 and like 14 or 15, I think. So it's been a while. But yeah, like so they might have changed things now. Things might be better now. We might be more like, you know, we might be provide more training for the bud tenders now. I don't know. But like when I went in, they were just literally like, yeah, just sell them the weed, just sell it, whatever you have to do. Like if they ask for this, just tell them, yeah, that's what it is. Like the whole reason I ended up stop working for the dispensary was because like I just started like learning more and more about weed and interacting with people in the weed industry, people who were actually going like working at the dispensary really made me like reach out to people that I had interacted with in the past who were still growing and still doing things in the cannabis industry that I didn't even know about at the time. So it was like, oh, okay, like what's this? What's that? What does this mean? How do I do this? Like asking a bunch of questions to them. It kind of, that's what like really opened my eyes to show me like, wow, like the dispensary is a shit show. They really just don't care. Like they don't care like what they're putting out, what's going on here. Like, so it was kind of like, all right, I'm starting to like learn stuff and it's pretty much teaching me that like things aren't right. So and I don't know about every dispensary. This is just where my place where I worked, how things went. I can't like speak for all the other dispensaries. I can only speak for that place. But yeah, no, they didn't train us at all. Pretty much any training that any bud tender had at that time was self knowledge. Like you'd have to like Google it, pretty much.
Well, that's part of the reason why I ask is I think that as the recreational side of things push on, I think the medical side's going to become more of a not necessarily a joke, but left behind as far as the seriousness of it.
Yeah, no, I can kind of see what you mean. You mean like just like the industry not like giving as much like attention to the fact that like we actually medically need this. Like a lot of people like their days wouldn't be feasible without cannabis. Like some like, and I can even speak for that. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you look like really healthy. Like, you know, you don't seem like you have medical issues. Like you would need cannabis, you know, like you'd think like you would look a certain way or whatever. And that's like, a lot of times it's because I'm high. Like I might be even feeling pain or feeling this or feeling that, but I'm fucking stoned. So like I feel stoned, you know? So I'm just trying to like take that in and not think about the other shit, not think about the other ways we feel. And I think a lot of people, like even just people like me, like we take it for granted, you know, we take like fucking just the fact that we have the ability to smoke every day and deal with our medical issues in that manner. We definitely take it for granted. And I hope, you know, we put more into the medical industry and we like put more emphasis on like maintaining it as a medical treatment. And there should be like doctors who prescribe us specific things, who are truly there to like help us find things. Like there's doctors that are gonna, you know, prescribe you a Percocet if your back is hurting. There should be doctors who like know the exact kind of cannabis to prescribe you if you're have a back injury, you know, or nerve issues or, you know, lupus or whatever the case may be. Like we should be putting more energy into that. But instead, I think we gave like 17 million to like undercover police force here in Phoenix or something like that with our recreational taxes. I think I'm pretty sure that's what we did with them instead. Doctors. I don't know. Are you in Arizona?
No, I'm in Michigan. It's where I'm from.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. 11:30. Yeah. So here is like, it's weird. Like instead of putting money towards like the medical industry, like the taxes that we get, you know, putting it towards educating people on like how to consume properly or, you know, whatever, even if we're going to like educate people, I feel like even educating them on like, you know, smoking and driving or whatever the fuck. But instead we like put a lot of money towards our undercover officers. Like we basically like put, I think they said 17 million. I don't know if that's exactly the amount, but I'm pretty sure that's what it said. We gave like 17 million to undercover forces. And that all came from like recreational taxes. When it's like, you would think some of that money should go to like educating. Even maybe educating the officers.
I thought that, and I may be wrong here, but I thought that's the way Colorado operated. Was a lot of cannabis money went for higher education and education. But again, I could be wrong, but that's what I thought.
I mean, Colorado, I do know a lot of it has like, you can see like the places where cannabis has entered, like the cities have all been like upgraded, like even Oklahoma, like I've spent a lot of time there recently. And even there, like you can see like it's so much not like they're like doing upgrades on the inner city and like, you know, there's definitely money going into these cities when weed comes into play. But a lot of it is going basically, I think, to policing as opposed to like educating. And even if we put some of it towards educating officers, you know, like a lot of officers still think of weed and people who smoke weed like a pothead or a stoner. They don't like see them as like, you know, their grandpa that has stomach cancer. You know, there's some of them are coming around, but a lot of them are still thinking like, oh, like if you smoke weed, you're like a guy with a skateboard and a backpack.
I miss the backpack days. Yeah,
right? You always knew where the plug was. He was the guy with the backpack at the party, you know? The guy that skateboarded in with a backpack or scootered in with a backpack. They never had a car. I don't know why. Like, at least here in Phoenix, the plug never had a car. I think I was like, yeah, no, I had a car because like when I was 14, like I was taking my grandparents' car because I was living on my own. So I had to like drive places to like serve people weed. So I would borrow my grandparents' car and I would take that to do my deliveries. I was pretty much the only I was the underage pug with a car, I guess. But all of the rest of them were just skateboarding around.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
when did actually, I know you kind of mentioned that you started using cannabis again for the pain there, the arthritis, but did it have a medical benefit? Did you notice the medical side of it before? I know that at some points people notice the medical aspect of cannabis at certain times. Some people, it's right away. It made me feel normal, I hear. Some people, it's a little bit later in life when, maybe it's suggested to them that they can use it as a medicine. And some people, I think it actually sets in when they start growing the plant, because I think there's a lot of medical value to just growing the plant. So, at what point would you say that you actually realize, hey, this isn't just recreational, something to have fun, whatever? Was it actually at the point when you restarted using it for the arthritis, or did it kind of maybe a little bit before?
So honestly, I think my first time like experiencing it medical was like a little bit, I knew I was like taking it for medical purposes, but it wasn't until I had like just seen results. Like I was suffering from like a lot of different things actually. Like I had just got diagnosed with anemia. I had like an infection in my blood at the time. Like it was just like so much stuff was like piling up on me at one time, and I like didn't really know like what was going on or like what I needed to do. And I was going to different doctors and they were all telling me different stuff. And it took me like a few different times and tries to even find out that I was suffering from RH. And finally, like I think like as soon as I started, at first I didn't really think it was going to help, honestly. Like I first started smoking, and I think for the first like month or two, I really just thought like, all right, well, at least it makes it to where it's easier to sleep at night. Cause like I was having trouble like sleeping through the night. I would wake up, like body would be hurting. So I was like, oh, like I will just use it. Hopefully it'll just help me sleep at night. Like, and we'll just see what happens and I'll go from there. And I think it was like a couple months in, I had someone actually making me concentrates at this time, because concentrates weren't really like, they weren't like available at the dispensaries that were around here really at that time. It wasn't like popular. So like I had this person making me concentrates at the time. And I think it was like, yeah, probably a few months in that I started to realize, like, not just like, it wasn't just like my physical health, it was like my mental health was improving as well, where like I was starting to feel like, just like I was never going to know what was wrong with me. And like life was just feeling really like aimless and pointless. And I wasn't really understanding like why, like I think a lot of my thought process was kind of like why do I have to feel this way, why me, why is this going on with me? It was just like a really like sour like self like down type of place. And a couple months had gone by and I had been smoking, and I kind of like realized like my whole mindset had shifted. It wasn't just like I was feeling better, but it was like my mind was feeling better. Like I had like got this clarity to where I felt like, okay, I don't have to constantly question why me. Like I just need to take care of myself and like do things to focus on my health. And it was just kind of like eye opening. And then the guy that was making me concentrates, he blew himself up. He blew himself up at his house and down the street from my place. And like I was smoking weed again, and the weed at that time, it put me like, I think it like basically pushed me over the edge. It was like I hadn't smoked weed that whole time. I basically, it'd been years since I had even used cannabis, really, like maybe smoked a couple times here and there. And then basically I think it was basically like after I got my diagnosis, I smoked for a few months, but no weed. All that whole time I was only smoking this this magical goo that I didn't really know what it was, like tree sap, basically. That's what I was like describing it to the people I would let try it. I was like, yeah, it's like sap. Like if you would imagine if you were smoking the sap out of like a tree, I guess it's like something like that. And that would just make me feel like, it would make me feel better, but it was like really, I would describe it as if you smoke something that has a lot of THCV in it. It's like very like high strung type of shit. Like you're basically like, whoa, okay, this gives me a jolt. So at that whole time I was smoking that and I was feeling like energized. I was losing weight. I was not having aches and pains as much. And then I started smoking flower again because that guy blew himself up. And that was like what kind of grounded me and like gave me the mental shift to kind of see like, okay, like this is what I want to do. This is like good for me. My body's changing. My mind is changing. Like everything is kind of like coming into play exactly how it's supposed to. Like I want to grow. I want to like, like my mind was just like, I want to be around weed all the time. Like, I think it was like, that was like a couple months in, it was just like, this is like where I want to be. Like, I don't even care. Like, how do I get there? Like, where do I go? I'll grow on my front porch. Like, what do I have to do? And I was like, dispensary. And then the dispensary was all bad. And then it was like, I worked for a few home growers, like basically. So like, cause I didn't want to grow here at my house. Being a single mom, I didn't want to like take the risk of growing at my house. So I just worked for home growers for a while, like a bunch of different great home growers too, like people who are growing just like real flower. It really like showed me what was really fucked up about the dispensaries even more. Cause I was like, or the dispensary I worked at specifically. Because like the flower was just so, you could just see the difference in like the love that someone puts in their own flower, when you're growing your own plant and you're just like, you're loving it every day and you're paying attention to it every day and you're doing all the things it needs and you're able to look at it and see what it needs. Like you can look at the plant and see that it's telling you like doesn't have enough water, you're flooding it, you're some kind of pest has gotten onto it. It's going great and it looks fantastic. Like it literally tells you all of those things. So it was kind of like being around people who were growing on their own. That was just like mind blowing, just fucking crazy to see the huge miles of difference between their product and what it did for me and to me and the product that you can like buy from a shop, It was just like totally different worlds.
Sure. I completely agree. So Chad was kind of laughing a little bit about how nonchalantly you blew by the guy blew himself up.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's actually not the only person I know that's done that. Like, it's crazy. I guess being like a concentrator, being a person who consumes concentrate at the rate that I do, and I've made concentrate before a number of times, a bunch of different kinds. I've made bubble hash rosin and regular pressed rosin and all of that stuff. I pretty much made every kind of concentrate you can think of at some point or another. And during that time, the people that I've met that make concentrate, like few of them have blown themselves up, actually. Quite a few. Quite a few of them. Actually, when I first came down here, or when Sub first came down here, pretty much he moved in right away and I had started going over there. And he had some concentrate maker, some guy come down from North Valley or Washington. Yeah, he blew up the lab. Oh my God. Did you hear about this? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the kind of funny thing. Sub's a good friend of mine. I don't know. Obviously, you didn't know that, but he's a real good friend of mine. And earlier when you started talking about Sub, I kind of danced around it because I had a shitty connection and it was kind of back and forth. But I was wanting to make sure, you know what I mean? I could hear the stories. But yeah, Sub was a good friend of mine. And so, yeah, I did know firsthand about John blowing up the trailer there. I thought it was hilarious. Well, it wasn't hilarious. It was scary, but um, yeah, I did know of it. I did absolutely know of
So it was kind of both of those things, scary and hilarious. Actually, like right before John blew up the trailer, I drove with him up out of town to go get some product. And at the time, me and Sub, we didn't know that that was the product that he was like selling off to everybody as if it was his. We had no idea. We thought he was making the product that he had brought down here. And like I literally like my little I went up to Washington with him to get the product, and like we went and met up with his girlfriend and stuff up there and then drove back down. And like the whole time I had absolutely no idea that he was like doing that, because I would have told Sub. I would have been like, yo, I'm pretty sure we purchased that product while we were in Washington. But instead, I didn't tell Sub that until after the unit blew up. I was like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I wish I would have put two and two together, but I didn't even think about the fact of why would he be purchasing the product if he knew how to make it. This is like doesn't really make sense, I guess. But yeah, that was really fun, actually. That was really fun. That whole situation with the whole dispensary, just everything just blew up with that so fast.
Yeah. So, I do miss Sub, man. I say that every night, man. How much I miss that cat. That cat, I owe actually a lot to Sub, to be honest with you. You know, I am a good grower in my own rights. But when I met Sub and started dealing with him, testing for him, things for me in the cannabis industry definitely started to pick up and steamroll. Even after his death, the connections he left behind for me, uh, were huge. You know, I still, I'm very thankful and miss that guy every day.
Oh my God, me too. So much, yo. It's like I still drive by his house like every single day. So it's like tough because it's just like I just like want to stop by and be like, yo, what's good? Or, whatever. It's really, some days are like cool, and I'm just happy that like you get the opportunity to interact with people who are just like, he's crazy, he's a fucking crazy person. He's like, his personality is like nobody else. Like he's like a crazy person. That's the best way to describe him. But like in that craziness is like someone who's just like on a whole nother level of like genuine, and just genuinely wanted everybody to know how amazing it feels to grow your own weed. Like how empowering it is to grow your own medicine, to know how to treat your own ailments. Like he just genuinely wanted each and every person to be able to like just know how that feels, like to feel that good feeling. And just someone like that is just really rare.
Yeah, Sub had a way to make you feel like a rock star, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people, knew the public persona of Sub, but a lot of people didn't know like the behind the scenes Sub, man. Sub actually had a huge heart, man. It wasn't as give a fuck as he portrayed it to be, in the public eye. Not by
No, like
any means.
no. Basically, like I would say as the more I don't give a fuck Sub was, the more he gave a fuck. Like the more he was putting out to the world, I don't give a fuck about nothing. That's the more he was giving a fuck about everything. He was almost like constantly putting up this barrier to protect himself from the public by presenting himself as if, he was a personality, because it was easier for him to not be like feel attacked by, negative, like by some people who like they're just negative. Like obviously nobody's perfect. We're all suffering from our own personal judgments against ourselves that are like almost impossible to overcome, because we know everything we've done. We know every bad choice we've ever made. We have to hold ourselves accountable for that. So it's like there's all these, outward perspectives of like who you are as a person and, what you are as a person, I guess. So you have to like protect yourself from not allowing those other perspectives in to hinder how you feel and think about yourself. And I think that's a really hard thing to do, especially if you're, putting yourself out into the public and doing things like giving free weed advice away when there's plenty of people who want to charge to do that stuff. So for them, it's almost like you're robbing them of business, and that can easily make somebody an enemy. And then, none of us make the right choice all the time. Like that's, I think, pretty obvious. Like a lot of us, we make wrong choices sometimes. So it's like, you can't expect everybody to appreciate and love you and see you as a whole, see you as who you really are. You have to just hope that you can impact as many people that do get to see you, that do get like the real perspective of you as you can, like while we're here. I think that's like the most important thing.
For sure. I can't believe it's been 2 years, to be honest, with the census passing.
Me either.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I can't either. It's been, yeah. Oh my God. You're right. It has been. I didn't even realize it's been 2 full years. It's crazy. Like time has gone by really fast lately because of like everything that's been going on in the world. Like we've been dealing with like so much, even just right. Like we were all thinking like maybe Sub was affected by COVID when COVID first happened, because we didn't get like the notice for COVID until like March of 2020, and he ended up passing away in the first day of February. So we didn't know if like maybe that had like played a part in like what happened to him or what, but like because that happened right afterwards, it was like everything was just like crazy for a while. Like it was almost like it got washed up. Like we couldn't do anything. We all wanted to get together, we wanted to have like a memorial, but we couldn't do that. Nobody could get together. It was just like, it was almost like that year kind of robbed like anything that happened during that year. Like if you were a senior in high school, like you got robbed of your senior graduation, if you were, a kindergartner, you got robbed of your first year of kindergarten. So it's kind of like, we didn't have that opportunity to kind of like, I don't know, do our formal goodbyes, if that's what it's called, So it kind of made it almost like it didn't happen.
Yeah, it definitely feels surreal to be honest with you. So much to that first year. We lost a lot of cannabis legends. I lost some people in my family. Both instances, like you say,
I think we lost.
Wasn't allowed to gather more.
Was it Frenchie too that we lost that year? Or was that the next year?
Next year.
Yeah.
Next year.
So many people in the cannabis industry. Yeah, I mean, fuck, it's crazy. It just makes you like think about how temporary life is, and like how lucky we are to just be able to like be here. And for the time that we're here, everything that we could do to like help other people, impact other people, is like where our focuses should be. Because I feel like a lot of us, we get really distracted, like with just the world happening around us, and we kind of get like stuck in like the daily grind, just like whatever that is for us, for each individual person. So it's like we're stuck in this daily grind, and we're not like thinking about like what we're really supposed to be doing and how we're really supposed to be like interacting with each other and impacting each other and doing things like what Sub did, you know, taking the time to like teach people, to like just genuinely take time to teach people whatever it is that we know. Like some people, they know stuff about weed, teach people about weed. Some people know stuff about, you know, I don't know, fucking other shit. Like, you know, just teach people, impact people around you with knowledge and educate them, which is like a lot of us, we kind of just don't really care about what's happening with our fellow person, or it's not really our priority to help people. Like it's not, it's just basically like, oh, like it's not my job type of stuff. And like that's one of the thing I really, really admired about Sub, was because he felt like it's my job. It's my job to teach people about weed. Like nobody hired him for it. It wasn't like he got a salary for it or anything. Like he didn't make money off it. He really just did it because he wanted to, like just because he genuinely wanted to talk about weed all day long. Like that's what he wanted to do. It's kind of like me. Like I could relate to that because like I wanted to be around weed all day long. It's like I just want to be around them. I want to look at trichomes through the magnifying glass. I want to walk around the grow and look at each and every single plant, feel it, touch it, smell it, figure out the terpene profiles of each plant. Just like everything. Like I just wanted to soak it all in all the time. I think that's just like in general, like even now it still hasn't changed. Like I try to never pass up like opportunities to go hang in different grows and like see how different people grow weed. Like I'm just like mesmerized by it.
So what is dab plunder in the name? Is that necessarily the most effective way to use cannabis you've found?
No, honestly, the name just kind of came up because when I first started my Instagram, like I was dabbing. I don't even think I had started smoking weed again yet. I was just dabbing. And my last name is Hunter. So I was just trying to think of like a good Instagram name. And it kind of just was like, oh, I'll just use Dab and my last name. And then it kind of got made into like a joke for a while. So like I was just like, fuck it, like let's just roll with it because it's obviously working. Like let's just keep it going because it's working. And I pretty much just went from there. Like I just like kept it from there. And honestly, it's been like it worked well for me because like now people like attribute it to me. So it's easy like for people to find me or, you know, whatever. But it's also been like kind of a curse at the same time because, you know, I don't know, certain people definitely have the idea or live under the thought that, you know, in order to be a medical patient, you have to look a certain way or behave in a certain manner. And I think I've always just been like, no, like, I'm just never gonna like, I've had people offer me jobs and be like, you know, we'll pay you this much to come and work for us, but, you know, you have to change this and you have to do things differently. And, you know, there's just certain things we need you to do in order to like properly represent our company, which I totally respect and, you know, totally respectfully turned the jobs down because I just feel like I could just be myself. You know, I feel like the best way for me to be in the cannabis industry is to be myself and to tell people that like, no, just like even people like me have medical issues, like even girls that are half naked, even, you know, all different kinds of people have medical issues. We all use cannabis. It doesn't matter what we look like, how we dress, how we behave. And I feel like the more variety of people are using cannabis, like we want the grandmas that use cannabis and, you know, the aunts and uncles and the firefighters. We want all of the different people who use cannabis to be able to be comfortable being themselves and saying like, yes, I use cannabis. Because the more normalized it is, the more we get the opportunity to have it treat us the best way possible. The best way for us to learn about how cannabis is going to affect us is to have the rights to grow, to be able to test it, to be able to do human trials, all of these different things. And I feel like because we like put all of these stipulations on it, where we don't get that same, like those privileges haven't completely expanded yet. We're still, some of us are still like hiding, you know, we're still thinking like, oh, like, I don't want anyone to know I smoke weed because, you know, this or that, whatever the reason, because my job or because of this. When it's like, I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of the opposite of that personality. Like, I'm like, no, I want people to see that, like, even all different kinds of people, everybody can use weed for medical purposes and for recreational purposes, but specifically, you know, for medical purposes. Like, we don't even know what someone's dealing with. Like, we don't know someone's medical situation or what kind of ailments they might be suffering from. We never know that. You can't just look at a person and say like, oh, you know, this person's got lupus or whatever. So it's like, I really like feel like it's so important for us to be like, as cannabis users, to be like, yeah, like I fucking use cannabis. Like, that's what I do. It's how I treat my medical issues. It's like literally the difference between us, between it being federally legal and being where we're at now, where we still have people incarcerated for cannabis.
Which is crazy all in itself, especially here in the States, that there's people still being prosecuted or cannabis, or not even being able to grow or use cannabis illegally. You know what I mean?
So
That's crazy.
what's really insane about this, like a lot of people, this is like the craziest thing. So Oklahoma, where I work really often, they have like the most relaxed medical licensing that I've seen in anywhere else in the entire states that I've been to. Pretty much anyone can get a license. You can be a felon and get a license to like sell cannabis or open a dispensary or do any of those things in Oklahoma. Like, it's super relaxed there. Like, so like, at least it has been up until this point. Oklahoma happens to be the same state that my dad, my father, he served 9 years in prison in Oklahoma. And it was all because he drove over the state lines with cannabis in his vehicle. Obviously, a lot of cannabis, but nonetheless, just weed. It was weed. And he spent 9 years in Oklahoma prison. So like, it just shows you like how insane it is, because it's the same state where I'm literally seeing felons that probably were in prison with him. And now they're running dispensaries doing the exact same thing that he was doing and not having to suffer any consequences from it. And it's really just like a difference in a piece of paper in a couple of years. It's just like mind blowing to think about that. It makes me really wonder like how many people are still being incarcerated for cannabis, and like how many people like were incarcerated for extended periods of time, and like how, like, to think that like nobody will be held accountable for those, all those hundreds of thousands of lost years on all of these people.
Yeah, I can't wait for some kind of either decriminalization or legalization or something to happen with cannabis. But I think there's still a lot of room to fight. You know, I think if we don't get more people growing, like Sub wanted everybody to grow there, we're going to lose our opportunity. I think some of these big corporations, big pharma,
They
will
are
be coming to. I think they're going to take in. They're definitely lobbying for legal cannabis. But I'm afraid once they get their fangs set in, I think the medical market's really going to fall behind, is what I'm afraid of. And even when they do, either plateau they reach, I believe they're going to, first things first, try to get the home grower off the table. You
Oh,
know what I
hell,
mean? Keep them from
absolutely.
producing their own medicine or recreational cannabis. I think it's going to be sad.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think the very first thing that they're going to try to do is try to eliminate the home grower. You can already see like the limitations that they put on a home grower. It's like, if you can afford to grow in your house, if you can afford the lighting, if you can afford to do it safely, then there should be no reason you're not allowed to grow weed in your house, just the same as you're allowed to grow a tomato plant in your house if you wanted to. There should be no difference. Like, the fact that there is a difference is just, it has everything to do with our government and how they will like people to only purchase weed from facilities that they profit off of.
It's muted. I think another angle of it too is, you kind of hinted towards it when you were talking about your experience with the dispensaries as it is. I think it's going to be more about which hype strain to push. Back to, pharmaceutical medicine with the notepads and the pens when you leave the doctor's office. You know what I mean? Try this. That's what it's going to be, I think, once they get their fangs into it.
Yeah, and I also think, like, I feel like we can't really trust our pharmaceutical companies right now, like what they've done to us, like the pill epidemic and what's been going on for the past 20 years with the way that they were prescribing and just like basically creating a whole fucking new form of drug addict that like literally nobody's safe from. We can't really trust them. So can we really trust them to have our best interest at heart when it comes to producing cannabis for us? Can we trust that they're not going to put things in it to make it more addictive? Can we trust that they're not going to do things to make it cause medical issues for us so that they can prescribe us something else at another date? Can we trust those things? Like, obviously it's all just speculation, but like, honestly, they've shown us like who they are already.
I agree. I definitely agree. Uh, and that's the one of the other reasons I asked about how they approach cannabis or medical cannabis. There is, I heard a report today, to be honest with you, about Georgia. Georgia necessarily is only still letting, the only medical use of cannabis they have is through RSO for seizures and stuff like that. And they released 6 licenses in that state to produce low hemp or low THC CBD oil, and they can't get anybody to take them licenses. Nobody wants to grow it, basically because there's no money left, no money in it for them. You know what I mean? They can't make the dollar that they can in the recreational market. Not only that, uh, out of state supplies, because they were letting other states kind of fill the void there until they could get their 6 growers up and running and producing oil for their state. Uh, Supplies has been exhausted because of same thing. There's too much money in the recreational market. Nobody wants to necessarily, and this is already, grow the CBD flower. So they're kind of left in limbo with no medicine basically in
Wow.
in Georgia for already, even to be able to outsource it. You know what I
I
mean?
had
It's
no
kind of
idea.
shitty.
I had no idea that was going
I,
on in Georgia.
I
You
think that's kind of what we're going to see more and more of, to be honest with you, because here in where I'm at, as a caregiver, I see more and more people not pulling a medical license because they have the same rights with legal cannabis basically as they do pulling a medical card. So, but they at that point they're pretty much out of pocketing it themselves, recreational, turn around purchasing it. And I think with that being said, numbers back financing, so and research. So as less cards are being pulled, the less likely or funding some of these medical researches will be likely to get, and it's sad to see, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because those are the people where the recreational tax is going to the police, this other tax is going to educating and researching the medicine. Do you guys have recreation where you're at?
Yes, we do. We have both recreational and medical cannabis, and what I seen was immediate. I mean, the first year recreational cannabis came across half the numbers of cards got pulled. I mean, immediately it was like, I just don't need it anymore.
Yeah, I
Most
think
people were afraid of being on some kind of list anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but what they don't realize is when you purchase recreationally, ADHS puts it to your license, which actually allows the police to see that you have purchased cannabis. Where when you purchase with your medical license, you aren't being put on that. It's not being purchased to your driver's license. So it's not going to ping up if the cops want to look in to see if you've been purchasing cannabis and driving, want to use that against you for driving or whatever the fuck they want to do, whatever the fuck they want to say. Where when you're purchasing medically, you're protected by HIPAA laws. So that is one thing where it's like having a medical card definitely benefits you. When you're a parent specifically, having a medical card definitely benefits you. You don't want, like, if, for example, your neighbor calls the police on you, if you're consuming recreationally, then you're looking like you're drinking and taking care of your child, which technically you're not supposed to do. A lot of people don't realize that, but you're really not supposed to consume or be intoxicated taking care of your child. So like you having a medical card protects you from that. It protects you. I'm consuming cannabis because I'm a medical patient and it's a medical need, and I don't have to give you the details of it because I'm protected by HIPAA laws. Where recreational use is not that, you're not protected by that. So it's like, I tell everyone you should have a medical card, plain and simple. Like, it just to protect yourself from just all the different variables that could come into play. Having a medical card benefits you, like it just does. And not only that, like, medical cards cost the same amount of like 3 visits of taxes. By the time you've gone to the dispensary 3 times, you've already paid for your medical card in taxes. And where the money goes, like we were saying earlier, just the fact that like all the money that we've made recreational taxes, I don't know, way more than 17 million, but at least 17 million of that money has gone to our police force. And not just the police force, but it's gone towards privatizing the police force. So providing them with things to like be undercover and to like do undercover work, which is like, in my opinion, that's like the one thing I'm like pretty like, I try to like support everybody doing their job. Like we all have a job. We all have to do what we have to do for work. We follow orders and instructions. And of course, we let our own experience guide us through those orders and instructions. And, some people, they have to be cops, and that's just the way that it goes. So for me, I think it would be beneficial to educate police officers, on all the different variables of cannabis use, and explain to them that it's like no different than like taking an Advil, really. I mean, there's some people who will get high and like, you shouldn't drive, like, oh yeah, I've smoked too much weed today, just like anything else, like I shouldn't drive or I shouldn't do this. And that, I think, all comes with like just proper choice making. Like we make certain choices, it's just up to us. Like we know our limits, we know what kind of person we are. So it's up to us to make the proper choices. Like, but really, like, other than that, like concern, what a lot of people will say, like, oh, people will smoke and drive. Other than that concern, it's really like, what else what else does cannabis really do that could possibly hurt or injure somebody? It's really like an Advil to me. It's kind of like, yeah, you have a headache or, your tummy hurts or whatever, you can smoke a little bit of weed and you feel better.
Well, it's even at that, there's studies that show that habitual smokers in driving, there's no real study or proof that it makes
No,
driving more dangerous for them.
no, not at all. The only thing I would say is like when I'm really, really stoned, I will sometimes get nervous to drive, but not nervous because I feel like I'm going to do something wrong. Nervous because I feel like if I get pulled over, I'm too stoned to interact with the police. I think that's probably pretty common. Like, like I'm just like, yeah, like I'm to the point to where I'm extremely stoned. I just don't want to interact with the police officers. Like normally I could be like, just like, obviously I smoke every day, all day. There's never a time when I'm not going to test positive for cannabis. I use it more than habitually. But at the same time, I mean, I think like most of the time, if I wasn't smoking, let's say like some days, like, maybe I don't smoke until like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So like if I go out and about, I feel more anxious driving without consuming than I feel after I've like, smoked for the day and like some time has gone by and then I've gone on a little go do my errands or whatever. Before I smoke, I'm so anxious about like just going out into the world, like experiencing people. It's like, like I don't know, I love people, don't get me wrong, but like just like with age, I've definitely gained like a certain sense of like social anxiety. So everything requires like a little bit more of like, all right, we can pep talk ourselves. Like, all right, we can get this going. We got this. Let's make it happen. Do the things we need to get done today. So it's like smoking a little bit of weed, I'm going to be more chill behind the wheel. I'm going to be able to be like, all right, like cruising, put some music on and go. Before I smoke weed, I'm like going to be just like hands at 10 and 2. Just like looking at the road, fucking focused, like ready to roll. I don't know, like it definitely just depends too, but it varies. Like I definitely like I will say there's like certain boundaries. Like I do love weed. Like my son, he hung out in the grow at Sub's house and he's been to other grows that I've gone to before. Like I definitely think like growing is completely natural and it's something that your whole family can do. There's no reason to hide it from our children or be, make it weird or make it uncomfortable for them. Like we should be able to share with those kinds of things with them. But I'm definitely like not a parent. As a parent, like I'm definitely not a person who's like, yeah, I'll smoke out my 16-year-old brother. Or like, I definitely think there is limits. Like I think like even smoking weed, it's a choice that we make as adults. So it's like, I guess as an adult, I wouldn't like try to encourage young people to do it. I would never tell anybody not to do what they want to do, but I definitely wouldn't be. I don't know. How do you feel about that? What's your perspective on that? On underage smoking? Yeah.
Well, underage smoking, I guess if they're, I prefer not to comment, I guess, but I guess if
Right.
if there was anything cannabis, I guess, yes. I've got 3 daughters myself, and they grew up around it. You know what I mean? I never necessarily hid it from them, and all of them said when they were growing up that they weren't going to use it. To be honest with you, come to find out later in life, a couple of them at some point did, snag a roach or two off my tray, they say, and smoked, but none of them really indulged until later in life. But
Yeah.
when I thought about it, as a parent, as, releasing them out into the world, as because it's a risk that we all take, as they get older. I mean, my daughters are ready to turn 27, 23, and 18. So they've all been, when they leave the house, that is a fear, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
From peer pressure or whatever. And if they were subject or to anything, yeah, I prefer cannabis,
Prefer
you know
be
what I
weed.
mean? And I
Yeah.
guess I've had that talk with my youngest daughter, to be honest with you, lately, because I've told her about the clear headedness of that. I'm like, uh, alcohol, you could find yourself in a predicament where you're good, might not be able to control yourself or the environment or whatever, and you'll be less likely, you'll be more likely to find yourself in trouble at some point.
Oh yeah.
So if you had to try something, I guess it was cannabis. I've had this talk with her,
Yeah. And
and the same thing later in life. It just made her, wiser decisions can be made through cannabis, I guess. So
no,
that's,
it's
you
so
know,
true.
my opinion on consumption anyway. I'm sorry.
I completely agree. No, I totally agree. I feel like that's exactly like kind of like the perspective that you have where it's like I'm the same way with my son. I never like hide it from him. He's 8 years old. I never if he knows like he's never accidentally eaten a gummy bear or anything like that because like he knows like there's certain candy that's medicine and certain candy that's not. So he's pretty mindful to not, just like snag a piece of candy. He understands that there's the consequences of snagging a piece of candy could mean that it could have medicine in it. So those are things he just doesn't do. I don't have to worry about it because I communicate it with him. Don't hide it from him. I keep it like right in front of his face. Like this is part of the world. This is part of our world. It's part of his life. There's no like there's no I don't like run off in a closet and smoke weed and then come out and like wash my hands and then like pretend it never happened because I felt like when I was a kid my parents were really put on this like persona that they had never done anything wrong. They'd never smoked weed and like they'd never done anything wrong, and then you grow up and you find out, whoa, like my parents are human beings and they actually do a bunch of fucked up shit, like so much fucked up shit. And then you're like, all right, everyone's a liar. And you have to go through this whole phase of like learning like how to trust people again because the people that you were supposed to trust the most never told you the truth about anything. And as an adult, like, as a grown woman, I look back and I think like obviously your parents do whatever they need to do to like teach you the best way they know how. Like they're just doing whatever they think is best for you, whatever they think is going to make you the best human possible. That's what they're doing. But when I was first moved out at 15, 16, 17 years old, I was just like, oh, these people are fucking liars. Like, I was growing weed and doing a bunch of things that at the time were definitely going to be frowned upon by people. Um, but like it wasn't until later that I realized like they were just as like naive as everyone else. Like our parents were just being like brainwashed in a sense. They were being told certain things were bad, certain things had been proven, and they lived under that experience. It's not until now where they're even seeing, notice like even my parents are smoking weed, like my grandparents are smoking. My grandpa's who got me smoking weed again. He's like a Navy general. So he basically was like, yeah, like fucking there's obviously some lies going around because, weed's good for you. Like he was diagnosed like with terminal cancer, and they had only given him like I think like 5 to 6 months to live, and he ended up living for like 3.5 years. He never did any chemo, nothing like that. All he did was smoke weed the whole time. And I wish I knew what it was, but he was actually like running a blog at the time for like because it was like a while ago when medical weed was like first coming up,
he was running like some kind of blog for like Navy people, I guess, yeah. And it was basically just like how cannabis was helping him through his cancer. And it was just like he would talk about it like all the time, like just talk about weed and like how they wanted to put him on chemo and like a bunch of different things. And like he had heard that like basically a lot of the people who suffer from cancer, a majority of their issues later in, if they survive, is the side effects of chemotherapy. The side effects of the treatment for cancer is like really like one of the worst things. It's like we don't even realize like how much it like just destroys our bodies. So like weed really like helped him like just like live his life, I guess, you know.
I guess as far as that goes, my next thing I'd like to say as far as like cannabis and family, I guess, and even though my next story is about my middle daughter, she was not underage, but just over age 21. Um, actually, she was under just fixing to turn 21. With non-cannabis user at that point. And again, like I said, most of my kids, 2 out of 3, or all I should three out of 3. What the fuck am I saying? Have waited to consume cannabis until later in life. And it was at one point when my middle daughter, uh, we almost lost, to be honest with you, through a car accident. And through it all, it left her with a bad battle with PTSD. And it left her with like trying to fight it with pharmaceutical drugs. And at that point, I actually did kind of push cannabis at that point, to be honest with you and everybody else. Uh, I did because I knew that there would be some more of a relief for. I had heard basically, and CBD was the first approach. I had heard the benefits that vets had had with it, and I had done a little bit more research. And I called a friend downstate that had a dispensary, and he immediately hooked me up with a bunch of CBD, and we seen the benefits immediately to help wean her off of that shit they had. And it, well, you know what? It was even scarier about it all is we all have our, quirks. You know what I mean? And one of hers is not being able to swallow a pill. And I actually have always thought that's a good fucking thing. You know what I mean? It's a plus. Except in like this case, basically because of that, what they sent her home with was all liquid form of very value and other shit they had tried to work her through,
Mhm.
and we're talking the prescription levels were like 5 mil. I'm sure you've worked with nutrients before. 5 mils is, nothing. There's a lot of room for error, especially when you're medicated with through that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh
For
yeah.
abuse or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And what we seen come out of that was terrible. And actually, cannabis CBD helped get her out of that and helped her deal with the anxiety and the PTSD after that. I mean, even after the accident, because of the medications that she was fighting her way through to kind of deal with the pains that she was going through mentally from the accident. Unfortunately, we had a few side effects that were on labels that you see of that type of medications, and almost again it could have lost her.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for cannabis and her being able to use that to get her off of. I wish she would honestly use it more today. But yeah, so yeah, I definitely, you know, if I had the choice, I would suggest it to my children. And
I
even
totally.
moreover, the cultivation side of things. I wish it would be not necessarily cannabis, but I'm hoping that's multi-generation. I would love to turn that my garden, my genetics, everything over to any of them at some point. You know what I mean?
Oh
But
yeah.
as like an underage, like pre, 18, uh, I think cultivation isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, as
No.
I've talked from grower to grower to grower, I've seen it do nothing but enrich their lives across the
Well, it's
board.
like kids don't know, like before it's cultivated, it's like you're fine. You're not going to get high from it. It's not going to affect you in any way. They can touch it. They can do anything to it that they need to do to a tomato plant. So I feel like it's really just teaching them another skill, like a skill that's going to be like really beneficial in our future society. It's really going to be one of the main probably money making jobs that there will be out there, or businesses to be in that there will be out there. So it's like teaching them about it now is like almost like putting them ahead of the curve, because it's like you're basically learning a skill that like we barely started putting people in school for. We barely started like educating people on. And even like the people like my friend that was going to school for botany, he was just using what he was learning about other plants and putting it towards cannabis, and then just like researching at that time. Like obviously, like I don't even know. We had like, we would use the internet and stuff. That's how I know I ordered the seeds, the high time seeds that I got back in the early 2000s. I ordered them out of a High Times magazine. So we had like, we would go through the High Times magazines to get, information, and we would, look things up online, but it wasn't like it is now where you could just go on Google and say, how do I do this? And then Subcool's website pops up and tells you, how to overgrow the earth. It wasn't like that before. It was like, if you wanted to learn about growing, you really had to like dig into the deep web and like, find people. Like there was a couple people who were like, I think at that time YouTube had just like started coming out, and there was a couple people who were like posting on YouTube so you could find information on how to grow. Like I found out how to foil my closet. I found out how to foil my closet. I think it was like a YouTube video that I had found, or maybe it was even on MySpace. Someone had posted about it, foiling the closet or something. So that's pretty much, I didn't even know to do that before. So I like, okay, put the foil up in my closet, get these little lights going, and, see what we can make happen with these random Zippo seeds. Like we'll just see what comes up. No nutrients, no nothing like that, just some soil that I got from some grow store down the street from my house. And yeah, just little tiny pots, regular potting plants. I think the guy at the grow store recommended the size, like just regular little potting plants to me. And yeah, I think like maybe like a quarter or half ounce came on a few of the plants, and then like one of them maybe got like almost an ounce. Maybe I got like a few ounces, maybe like a quarter pound out of the whole thing. So it was like very scarce, like the stuff that was actually like good and smokable. But at the same time, it was like, all right, weed happened. Now we make money off of it. It's cool. But like I could only imagine like if I had people teaching me, about weed as a kid, like what I would be doing with it now. Like if I was like, oh, okay, like my parents were growers or whatever. Instead, my parents were telling me like weed, like smoking weed, if you're a stoner, like you're gonna go to jail or be homeless.
That's
I think
one
it's
thing that the pandemic has been. That's about one of the only pluses, really. Is it's let cannabis be okay. It's been vindicated in a little bit, both as a medicine and in a lot of ways. Yeah, just socially accepted, to be honest with you. The pandemic that's one plus of it anyway. I've seen come out of it.
Yeah, I've seen like a few good things come out of the pandemic. And yeah, I would definitely say weed has been more normalized. Actually, which is really crazy. My stepdad, he's the one who's really like strict, growing up. He's Hispanic. He's from like a small town in southern Arizona. Like they're very like religious, Catholic church every Sunday type of people. And like weed is like drugs, to him, it's drugs, period. Like he will say it to me in Spanish all the time. So like just never forget, like weed is drugs. And within literally over the pandemic, I had gotten him, he was dealing with like, he has having surgery on, it's crazy that you bring up the prescription pills, because like those have impacted, pharmaceuticals have impacted me like on multiple levels in my life. But like, because I actually suffered with them when I was younger, like my doctor started prescribing my childhood doctor, my pediatrician, was prescribing me massive amounts of narcotics. Like by the time I was 17 years old, between the time I was 17 years old till the time I was like 21 years old, I'd probably taken more prescription pills and like gone through more prescription pills, all different kinds, any kind you can think of, anything that he would give me, anything that I would ask for pretty much was like at my disposal. So my stepdad really saw like how that affected me, and like just like that it's part of the reason why I didn't smoke for a while too, is because like I just didn't even know like if I could, because of how I had never had like an addictive personality before. Like I had tried different drugs throughout life, like recreationally, and like never really took to any of them. But being prescribed, I didn't even know I was addicted to prescriptions. It was like almost like everything was normal and everything was fine. And then like one day I woke up and I was just sick, and I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew like if I took my medicine that I would feel better. And it really took me like, a lot. It was a lot. Like it was a lot of like ups and downs and rock bottoms before I like really like decided like, okay, this is not what I want to do. Like I want to like, cause there was a time where I was telling myself like, oh, I could be on pharmaceuticals forever, like I could do this forever. Like my doctor prescribes it to me. Like this is just like my life now, I guess, so it took a lot for me to like not be that way anymore. And I really like didn't even want to smoke weed. I didn't want to do anything because I just didn't want anything to like lead me back down that path. It wasn't until like the doctors were literally threatening with prescribing me pharmaceuticals again that I was like, okay, I'll try the weed first and then we'll see what happens next. So because of that, my stepdad recently suffered like some injury. He's always had like issues with his body, but he suffered injury and he's always been against weed. But he saw like how the pharmaceuticals affected me. So he didn't want to even for 1 second risk it by taking the pharmaceuticals that they were going to prescribe him for his injury. So he was like, oh, like go get me maybe some kind of edibles or something from the store or the dispensary or wherever, and I'm going to try those first before I try the pharmaceuticals that they're prescribing me. And now he's like, okay, like I've smoked a cartridge, like he smoked a cartridge. He's like, using weed to like help himself for it. So like really like just like basically like, yeah, like in his mindset, he's like, okay, like I'm not even going to try pharmaceuticals. Like he trusted our word now, where before he would have been like, no, weed is drugs. Pharmaceuticals are prescribed by the doctor. Like I'm going to trust the doctor over my kids telling me to take drugs. That would have been his perspective before. But because he saw the real consequences of just following the doctor's advice blindly, and maybe not every doctor has our best interest in mind, they don't all care about the outcome of a situation. So, you know, I think like it could basically open our eyes to see that like maybe like weed is a better option sometimes, like where a lot of us wouldn't think that way. We would immediately think the doctor said, so I'm going to listen to the doctor. Even when I actually I got my boobs done in September of like not last year but the previous year, and they wanted to prescribe me pharmaceuticals, and I was like, nope, like I'll be fine, I'll just smoke some weed. I just bought a bunch of edibles from a bunch of different friends that I knew that made edibles, and I made a few edibles. I think I had some RSO, I just used that. I was perfectly fine. It literally, like what people don't understand is it really does the same, it does like, it kills pain at the same rate as like any pharmaceutical does. Like it really does, without the bad side effects.
Shit, I think it actually aids in the heal, to be honest with you, if you've taken it in some type of edible form prior to whatever procedure you've had done, to be honest with you. Especially in a larger amount, maybe a couple hundred milligrams or more, you know, CBD and THC, RSO, all the above, I think helps a lot for pain and recovery, to be honest with
No, you are totally right about that, because like a lot of girls were like asking me like, oh, like how's the pain? How does it feel? Like, and I literally, it was easier than getting a tattoo, honestly. And that's like crazy for me to say that, because you think like, oh, well, it's surgery, you're going to get like put under. And I was just like, no, like it really is like, you just, and now that I think about it, like I was eating edibles, CBD and RSO before I got the surgery done. I got the surgery done, and then I was completely healed, completely better within 3 days. 3 days of getting it done, I was back to normal. Like it didn't even feel like anything happened. Like, so like it may, the fact that you even just say that totally makes me think like, yeah, it's probably from the CBD, all the CBD and THC and RSO that I was eating the days before and the days after I got the surgery done. We don't even realize like,
you. So, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, go ahead.
I was going to ask about the dab sides of things. We are talking about like medical. Have you seen any adverse side of like dabbing frequently? Any drawbacks from, you know, the multiple drag, the ups and downs, or versus the flower? I'm curious. Just curious as somebody that doesn't dabble.
Yeah, so I've been dabbing like every single day for at least like 5, maybe 6 years now, and every day without maybe taking like maybe 1 or 2 days breaks here and there, but maybe not even. And in the beginning, the stuff that I dabbed wasn't very good. Like it was really low quality product, you know. Someone was making, I told you, somebody was making it in their house and they blew their arm up. So like the product was really low quality, you know, it's not good. And I actually never really, I describe dabs as a cerebral high, you know, I describe it as more of a cerebral high for me, where flower is more of like a physical high for me. Like it gets my body high, so I'm feeling like good and relaxed. I could go to sleep. Like it helps with pain, it helps with those kinds of things. So that's what, like flower, usually I'll fall asleep shortly after I smoke flower. Where when I'm smoking dabs, which I actually was diagnosed ADD in high school and or in elementary school, and I was prescribed Adderall in school because of the ADD. And I never really like thought anything of it until I started smoking dabs. And I realized like dabs are almost like the way that they like hit your head is like definitely, it's definitely mental. So because of that, when I don't know, certain dabs will make me feel an anxiety that will make me feel like something bad is going to happen, you know, like it'll be a mental thing though, like it'll be like like in my head, like I will go through these phases where I'll feel like, oh my God, something terrible is going to happen, or like whatever. I'll be panicking in my mind, anxiety. Certain dabs will do that. And then other times, like I will feel amazing. Like the dabs will completely like calm my thought process and I'll feel really good. And that's like the only thing I will say, like where it's like how it affects me cerebrally. Physically, I definitely notice like when I cough, I sometimes like will have like circular shaped mucus, you know. I'm not really sure like what it is, or like it'll be like just clear circular shaped like mucus that I will cough up. I'm pretty sure it's definitely from the dabs, you know. Like, and I most of the time have a cough. And I'm pretty sure it's from the dabs because like we haven't researched them enough. Nobody's like, I think like we're pretty much the guinea pigs for them. So it's like, you know, we're getting to learn about them, but I definitely would say like it doesn't like affect my breathing. Like I can still like I still like breathe okay. Like everything seems pretty fine, but like there's definitely, I will say like it definitely like I do notice that there's something different with like when when I cough up. It's all, and there's like never a time when I don't have mucus like in my chest. So it's like pretty much consistent. It's consistently there. So I don't think I had that same issue when I was smoking flower. Maybe when I was like smoking blunts every day, I had that same issue where like, you know, you're smoking blunts all day long. So of course, like as soon as I stopped smoking blunts all day long, I think for 2 weeks straight, I was coughing up black stuff.
See what initially started to scare and worry me is like what was I see, yeah, reclaim building up in the rig itself. You know what I mean? That's what I'm like, man, is that building up in my lungs like that? You know what I mean? That's what kind of scared me initially. And then as somebody that's kind of been in cannabis for a bit and watched uh dabs, you know, that type of extracts come into play heavy. I think the newer market, you know, 18 to 21, don't even know flower anymore. You know what I mean?
Mm-mm.
It's straight to dabs. And what I kind of, and again, don't have any white papers to kind of back all this shit up. This is strictly observation. Is I've seen kind of more anxiety and PTSD kind of come on with that. And I can't help but think there's somewhat of a correlation because maybe the lack of the use of flour or the just the introduction of just heavy use of extracts, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
that's, I don't know.
definitely the anxiety, because like it'll be like right after I take a dab, and so I know it's from the dabs, you know, like it doesn't the I always have said since I first started doing dabs, like, oh, they're a cerebral high, like it affects me mentally. And I feel like people who suffer from things like ADD or have similar, like, you know, where you want that, like, almost like that mental high. A lot of those people are drawn to dabs because you smoke them and you feel like it's almost like a release of like having to constantly chase your thoughts, or like, you know, your brain is constantly running. So if you do a dab and it's good, it's a good dab that's going to affect you in a positive way, you feel amazing. You know, your brain is like in a place where it's just like, yeah, this is fucking awesome. I feel great. I feel relaxed. I feel comfortable. Like I could pretty much do whatever, watch TV, clean, hang out, doing, you know, anything. Like I feel amazing. But then occasionally, you know, I'll do a dab that doesn't affect me in a good way. And I could just see like how, you know, like just even like I don't know, even just like I've seen a couple of people where they're just, I always have dabs, so I'm not gonna like speak too much on this because like since I've started doing dabs, like I pretty much I don't know if I've ran out like in a long time. It's been a long time, but I definitely see other people. So I know like it's the lack of dabs sometimes, then they'll be like feeling depressed. And I can just see that they're getting anxiety and depression and suffering from that. And they're just like, oh, I just wish I had like some dabs to do. So it's almost like, definitely more like, cause it's that cerebral high, you're getting that like brain high, you like want it, you definitely want it. So I could see like not only it being, having that effect, but also like, being maybe a little bit more addictive than weed. You're getting all that THC just shot into your brain at one time, and like, if you think about how good flower feels and it's like a slow high, now you're getting like, like 10 times that just right to the brain. So when it's good, it's good. And when it's bad, it's like, fuck, like I've literally thought like, fuck, I'm like, am I gonna die? Like, is this my last dab? And then it's like, it's not funny because it's like definitely like, you don't want to feel that way. You want to feel good. You want any kind of cannabis that you're consuming to make you feel good. So like, I think that's another reason, because I felt that way sometimes, why I feel like I wouldn't like introduce it as like for consumption to people underage, because like feeling that way is really terrifying, so it's like you're just like, oh shit, like fucking like you don't want anyone else to like suffer from that if they're not like I'm an adult. For me to suffer from that, it's like, okay, like I'm high, everything's chill, I can figure this out. But I think when I feel that way, I think about like some of the memes and stuff I've seen online where the person's like smoked for their first time, or like, and they're totally panicking, they're just like in another world, like this isn't right, or like whatever, like I don't know, you've probably seen them, like just funny ass like first time smoking videos. Like it's like I've seen those and I think like this is exactly what those people were going through. The only difference is like I have the ability to process that I'm stoned right now, and they didn't. They didn't have that ability. It's pretty much it.
So from somebody that doesn't dab a whole lot, I'm curious, have you seen as, extract methods have came a long way? I mean, BHO, especially from the blow yourself up days to now, is a lot cleaner. But even in that process, I believe it still pulls out. They're able to separate so much, to be honest with you. And I think
Oh
a
my,
lot of that ups and downs is the removal of stuff. It's like fats and lipids and shit like that that keep it in your system. So do you find now that like rosin dabs are more popular through the pressing of hash or pressing of flour? Is it a more lasting high? Is it that have that up and down as you get with you know the gas methods or the
no, I prefer rosin personally. Like I would rather smoke rosin. I do smoke BHO still. Um it just depends on the product, really. Like I'm really picky with like I'll only smoke like one or two companies that make BHO. Everyone else I pretty much like, I'll like take a dab of somebody else's stuff. Like I'm not a snob or anything. Like I'm not gonna be like, nah, fuck your weed. But like I'll be like, I just won't smoke as much of it because I like know how I could potentially feel if it's not good stuff. But I definitely prefer the rosin, but it's just so expensive. So I like, if you can make it for yourself, then it's great. Like if you have the ability to make it for yourself, I love bubble hash rosin. Like if you just, all you need is a little fucking bubble washer. You can make it for yourself in your own fucking house, bubble washer and a deep freezer, fucking dry freezer. You can even just do it in the deep freezer. Honestly, I've done it that way. It just takes a little bit longer. But yeah, so like if you have that equipment, you can make it for yourself. I'm like, do that, do it all day, do it, make rosin, make your own rosin. That's the best way to do it. But you know, I do think that some companies, not a lot of them, but a couple of the companies have figured out how to make good product, you know. Not every company I've promoted that does. That's for sure. I'm definitely going to say that. Like, I've worked for companies that do not make quality product. Definitely experience that. But at the same time, um like that, it's some of their stuff that has given me the really bad anxiety and made me feel like really uncomfortable at times. So like it's kind of taught me like, okay, like I just don't want to smoke too much of this kind of stuff because I know like the consequences. And I definitely, you know, it could be like some of it having the BHL left in it, or like not being purged properly, or like who knows, even having chemicals from the actual grow process in it. Like we don't, you know, I wouldn't even know. So all of that stuff could really contribute to like how the dab makes you feel, I'm sure. So I mean, that's why like BHO is just, it feels safer because you're like, oh, it's solventless, you know, it doesn't have any, it's you remember how in the beginning I was like, yeah, like I was smoking weed sap. It's actually weed sap. You know, like before I was smoking BHO mixed with like some weed sap. Now like rosin is like actual weed sap. So at least it's like, the best way to describe it is like the sap that comes out of a maple tree, you know, but it's a weed plant and it gets you high, super high.
So we've kind of learned about temperature as we've the progressive dabs as well. Back in the day, we were pretty fucking ignorant, just kind of slamming a torch to it, you know, not even thinking about what temperature we were hitting that shit. And I think that's where a lot of the early, and again, when I think of that glass-like layer on the bong, or the rig, bong, rig, same
Mhm.
thing, really. Uh, uh, that's what I back when we were hitting it super hot, very,
Oh my,
ignorant of temperature and shit like
yeah,
that.
the fact that we even
So we've
think
kind of come a little.
710, like the fact that we at one point thought 710 was an appropriate temperature to do a dab, and we were doing gram dabs at 710 degrees. Like, who told us that was okay? That was a bad idea.
So how much do you think that temperature in general affects the buzz overall? I know we know it's kind of bad at the high temps, but do you think there's a difference in the buzz and temperature overall?
I personally do, yeah, because basically, like at a certain point, you're frying your terpenes off, and terpenes are like, a lot of people don't know, but like terpenes are what determine whether you're going to get a more sativa leaning high or an indica leaning high. They're, you know, they're what make you feel how you're going to feel. So if you just fry the terpenes off, like really, you're eliminating that whole process, and you're, I don't know, like I think what happens is like you get a little bit fucked up because you're lightheaded because you just filled your lungs with smoke, and then, you know, like did get a little blast of THC or whatever. But you know, in the long run, like you've really just, you know, gotten yourself lightheaded. You really aren't really that high for any extended period of time. You want to do a dab again soon, but your chest hurts, so you can't. So like smoking low temp, like which is what I do. I smoke super low temp, like especially if I smoke like off banger. Like I typically do a cold start. I don't know, like some people like to do it that way. That's how I prefer it. I just feel like it helps me get like the best dab possible because I want to get like full terpene profile. I want whatever terpenes are in the dab, I want them to affect me exactly how they're supposed to. So I just heat them up enough to like get a nice smooth dab off of it. It doesn't fuck with my chest or make me choke or gag. I use the Puffco like a lot because it's simple, it's easy. I can like put it at a low temp and like smoke off of it at, you know, low temp basically. But if I use a rig, I always just cold start that shit. Like I just like slow burn it. And I feel like it makes a huge difference too. Just like how long my high lasts. Like I'll do like a nice low temp dab, like hit it a couple times, and like I could go the whole day without smoking afterwards. Like just feel nice and chill. That's another thing about dabs is like I feel like they last a lot longer, you know? They like are just like a little bit more extended in my body where I could go the whole day without dabbing. If I smoke weed in the morning, as soon as I'm like not tired again, then I'm ready to smoke weed again.
So, and what do you say to as somebody that's been um, a bud tender? Uh, I'm sure you dispensed a few dabs at an event or two.
Oh yeah.
Uh, what would you say to some of these people that of all ages that I see step up to the dab rig? I have seen some elderly folks step up to a dab rig at some point and go down from the sudden rise of blood pressure. Do you think there's honestly like a cutoff where people should be like, yeah, don't even think about
I've honestly seen people of all ages flop out on a dab at an event of all ages. Um, I personally, when I go, honestly, I'm super picky where I'm gonna dab at an event. Like I don't just go up to any table and start taking dabs. I think that's like the number one rule is like don't just go up to any table and start dabbing. Like pay attention to whose dabs you're smoking. Some people aren't in this business to heal, you know? So that's like something we really have to keep into consideration. And like sometimes like people are serving us up stuff that's just like trash. You know, it's really just the stuff they don't want to sell or they can't sell or maybe is expired or whatever the case may be. So I think that's like the first thing is like we go up to these tables and we just like do a giant hot dab of something that we probably shouldn't be smoking in the first place, and then we flop out. And I've seen so many people of all different ages flop out from a dab. I think maybe like I don't know, like I've definitely honestly I've seen more young people do it than older people. I've seen maybe one or two older people flop out on a dab, but like here in Phoenix, like maybe like because it's hot, I don't know, but like definitely kids flop out on dabs in the summertime, like at the events, like on a regular basis. It'll happen like 3 or 4 times in one event. And like, I would just say, don't just dab at anybody's table, and don't don't be don't try to be a badass, you know, like because you'll see these people and they'll just be like, yeah, like I want a fat dab because in their minds, like it's like the American mindset where we're like, it's free, so I want as much of it as possible because it's free, you know, fuck it, where we should just be like, yeah, like I just want to do a dab. I just want to taste your product because that's really what it is. Like it's a product tasting. So you can go to whatever their store is or, you know, get their business card and get some more product from them at a later date. Like that's what it is, product tasting, testing. So just test the product, you know, just take a little dab, enjoy it, just test it, see how it does for you, and just, you know, go move on. Don't try to like be a fat dabber. Don't try to like, you know, don't try to dab glob up whenever you're just a regular dabber. Just do a tiny little dab, get a tester of what they're selling, and see if it's something you want to smoke and purchase at a later date.
So you kind of led me right up to my next question there, the glob up, if you will. So is it necessary or is it show or is it tolerance, to be honest with you? Because sometimes, man, I can take I feel like at some point when you hit it in a banger, you're dedicated, but I don't necessarily feel any more high, maybe it's slightly more intense because I've got to finish it off and I've taken a bigger hit. But in the same aspect, off like say something like a Puffco or a dab straw, I feel like I get just as elevated uh, with way less amount. You know what I mean? So is it show, tolerance, or you know what I mean? What do you
I
think?
think a little bit of both. I think mostly show though, mostly show. Because I've seen these people doing like 2 gram dabs and doesn't even fit in the banger, and it's just like overflowing. It's just like so silly, such a waste of product. Not just a waste of product, but like if you're wasting product, it's typically not good stuff. So now you're doing a gram dab of something that you don't even think is good. So and 90% of the time that is the case. It's something they don't even think is good because they're just wasting it. So it's just like it's really like worth the health issue. Like it's like what kind of health I'm curious to see how those gram dabbers are going to be affected in the future, because like those of us who've been smoking every day, you know, for years now, smoking dabs every day for years now, we're going to have consequences for that. We obviously know that. We're going to learn what the consequences are. We're already, some of us, learning what the consequences are. I have one friend who had his lung burst. He was holding a dab in, which you're not supposed to do, which I literally on live, I had to tell somebody today not to do it because they were like telling their girlfriend to hold the dab in. And I was like, no, don't hold the dab in. It's not how dabbing works. I had one friend, he was holding his dab in like a weed hit, and his lung burst from it. And he had like to get like crazy surgery. Now he does not dab anymore. He says like he can barely smoke. He can only do like tiny little smoking puffs, like can't like take any hits anymore really, or like do anything like that. And like it was it's like we were just like, okay, we know now that's a consequence. Don't we didn't know that before because nobody tells, we don't know. They don't have like a journal or human trials. That's the one thing about weed, CBD and cannabis in general, is like technically it's all the patents to study it are owned by the government, and the government doesn't utilize them. So we don't get to find out how weed affects us or what the consequences or what the real side effects are going to be of cannabis, except for what we've experienced through consumption. We don't have the ability to study it yet. We can't like, you know, like let's say like you have a lab at your house and you want to start running tests and finding out how cannabis is affecting, you know, whatever your 5 patients that you have for your caregiving grow. You could literally not only get in trouble, but lose all of the information that you gather for doing that. Like you're not allowed to study how cannabis affects the patients that you're technically providing it to, or whatever. I don't know if that's how your caregiver's license works. That's how it is here. Like here, if you're a caregiver, you have 5 patients and you can grow X amount of plants for each patient. So like, if you think like, imagine how much information we could learn if caregivers gathered information from their patients, side effects, how each thing affected them, you know, what each strain you gave them did for them, you know, what they were using weed for, and like, you know, whatever. Imagine if caregivers were collecting that data and then all putting it into a database, and we were able to kind of figure out what was affecting each person in each way, the people that had, you know, similar elements, how it was affecting them. To be able to calculate that would be like literally unbelievable. How many people it would help, how many people could learn how to treat themselves via cannabis. But we're not allowed to do that. Like we are technically not allowed to study cannabis. We can consume it, we can use it, we can, you know, treat ourselves with it, but we're not allowed to study it and find out like on a mass scale how it's helping people, which really we could do for the government with just what we're doing, like what you're doing, just caregiving, you know. But I feel like you're right in the sense of like, they're not going to want to put any more responsibility into home growers' hands. They're going to want to try to pull home growing out of the equation.
Oh, most definitely. and that's the bitch of it is uh it's going to be more of what we see now with pharmaceutical drugs, tobacco, and alcohol, is we'll be back to relying on information that they provided, because it'll be left out to either private study or the information that they provide through their research, basically. So I think, I think that's the way, why they're pushing so hard for legal cannabis right now, is so they can get in and control that information right now before too much medical information comes out. I mean, if you think about it, all three industries that are killing us right now, the pharmaceutical market, the tobacco market, and alcohol, are all losing big money. So they
Oh yeah.
don't necessarily want legal cannabis unless they can get in on it. And once they get in on it, then they can suppress the information from the medical, you know what I mean, and kind of get back in control of that market. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Once they,
that happened for years. They'll
weed
buy all the
out.
licensing up and then eliminate production, whatever they have to do, because, you can, like we were talking about earlier, like people feel more comfortable to drive on cannabis. That's a huge thing. DUIs are a huge thing. Like a lot of people have experienced a DUI. They know the consequences of that. So if they have the choice to go to their friend's house and smoke with their friend and just get home safely and not have to worry about anything, or go out drinking, like most people like right now are going to say, yeah, I'm not going to go out drinking, I'm just going to smoke some weed and just relax. So it's like, oh, just these little tiny things where it's going to affect their money on such a massive level. They want all of this stuff to happen because it benefits them financially. Like, and I think a majority of our society is run like that. It's like, what kind of financial benefit does it provide us? If it doesn't provide financial benefit, we need to do away with it. Weed is a weed. It literally, I've been to places where it grew, they had a season there, and I went back there the following year outside of season, and the weed was just growing itself. Giant fucking uh giant fucking male plants had popped up, and they were just blowing pollen all over the fucking place on their own, just in just regular fucking nature. They were just sprouting up everywhere. There was weed all over this fucking place, and they had to pull it out so they could plant their regular season, because the weed was just growing on its own in the fucking ground, like as if like just God made it. So so that tells me right there, like that's not a profitable thing for our government to have, when they can't, like it can't even be controlled. Like just nature is going to make it grow on its own. So for them, they look at it like, okay, like how can we keep it from being, how can we make it the most profitable? How can we eliminate it in the most places that we need to eliminate it so that it doesn't affect our profit margins? Especially because it affects our profit margins in our alcohol sales. It affects our profit margins in tobacco sales. It affects all of these other profit margins. So we want to make the most off of it. And like, what do we have to do to make that happen? And I think that's hopefully going to be like something that us as patients can stand ground on and like keep from getting too out of hand. It's going to be us, like as patients or home growers, or just cultivator, anything like that. It's going to be those people that are going to like basically push that off for as long as possible, push off big pharma from like spoiling cannabis in general. Because like pretty soon, we'll see packs of cigarettes, but they're just cannabis cigarettes, or spliff cigarettes, half cannabis, half tobacco. All that shit's going to eventually come out, and it's just going to be, normalized. So lots of people don't know, but like even like Kraft mac and cheese, you think about that and you don't even realize like Kraft mac and cheese is owned by Big Tobacco. It's owned by a tobacco company. And we all feed it to our kids. We ate it as kids, you know, like whatever. It's something that it's maybe like most people have Kraft mac and cheese in their pantry at some point in time. And it's actually terrible for you. And the people who own it are Big Tobacco. So we should know that it's terrible for you. You know, we should know it's like absolutely not good for you at all. There's so many negative things about eating it. And it's like almost mind blowing to think that it's like a normal food that we're eating all the time. So if Big Tobacco can purchase something like Kraft, and then we're just like eating Kraft mac and cheese, not even thinking twice about it because we live under the idea that it's okay because we've eaten it our whole life. What could they do with cannabis? You know, how can they make that benefit them in the same way?
A ton of ways. A ton of
Oh,
ways.
and we're talking about something that definitely has certain addictive properties. It's not like a physical addictive drug where you're like sick if you don't take it, but it definitely has addictive properties, you know, like cannabis, it makes you feel good. So of course you're going to smoke it on a regular basis. Like it just doesn't have the negative side effects that a lot of things have. Like anything, I say, like, you know, addiction is like, it's like something that we do that has negative consequences on our life, but we just continue to do it, even in spite of the negative consequences. So like, I feel like there's people who can do drugs, you know, there's people who can do all different kinds of drugs and they're fine. They're not addicts, you know, they don't have negative consequences from their drug use. They don't have, you know, things happening in their life that are just detrimental to their life because of the choices that they're making. And then there's people who do drugs and like fucking batshit crazy, like everything goes out of control. They're suffering from negative consequences on a regular basis, but they're just continuing to do whatever they're doing. And those people, you know, those are the people who are addicts. So I think anything, it can happen with anything, not just drugs, like food, you know, weed. So it's just the weed comes into the same place as that. It's like, okay, am I smoking weed and it's having negative consequences on my life? Like, or am I not going to work, or, you know, am I getting fired every couple of weeks? Like, how is weed affecting my life? And I think that's like really what determines, like, are you like an addict and someone who can use cannabis or at all or responsibly, or you know, just a person that can use cannabis, just enjoy it as recreationally or medically or whatever the case may be, and know that, like, you know, like for me, like I've done, like basically, like, you know, I'll take time where like I haven't smoked. I'll be like, you know, I'm just not gonna smoke. I'm not gonna smoke for like, not put a time on it. I'll never like tell myself like, oh, for 24 hours or whatever. I'll just tell myself, you know, I'm just not gonna smoke. I'm just gonna see how long I could go without smoking. And I think that's like a big thing. It's good for our tolerance, but it's not just good for our tolerance. It's good to teach us like how much control we have over ourselves, you know, like, am I just doing this every day, not controlling the, like, not knowing, like, cause like, I guess like I say, like, I say that and I do have negative consequences from dabbing. Like it doesn't make me sick or anything, but I definitely like have a cough and like I have like some, you know, I do cough some stuff up sometimes, like just clear round circular mucus balls sometimes come out. They're like tiny little balls. And I'm pretty sure a lot of other people that dab like how I do probably suffer from the same thing. But like it's not like a excessive negative consequence, but it definitely makes me sometimes take time to like, okay, like I'm not gonna wake up first thing in the morning and just start dabbing out, you know. I take my time now. I like, you know, just like I do smoke every day, but some days I'm not, I've taken days off because of it. Like I think we go through times where we're like, okay, like I should take a break and maybe, you know, just see how many days I could go without smoking. And that's like kind of taught me like, okay, obviously I'm fine. I don't, for me, I don't like feel like, oh, I need weed. I just like really enjoy it. It makes my days better. When I don't smoke weed or I'm going through the times where I'm like taking a tolerance break, I'm just like, meh, like I'm fine. Life's good. It's great. It's what it is. But then when I smoke weed, it's like, all my pain is away. So I feel good, you know, I feel like I can do shit. When I'm not high, sometimes I feel like it's life is a task instead of like an adventure. Weed makes life kind of like an adventure instead of a task, I guess. So it's like just using it responsibly, I guess, is that's like a fine line because we just don't know. Like there's no education on it.
Well, that's the beauty of cannabis right there. And I think that I like about it as a medicine is that you can control your consumption. You can control that high. And that's kind of what I like about that was hinting at, I guess, with the smaller amount of dabs there, the pens, the pen puff coats and stuff like that. It isn't as extreme as a lot of the bigger dab rigs and stuff is like that. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
So
No, go ahead.
you're the guest. I didn't.
No, you're good. What
Well,
were you gonna?
I was going to kind of mix it up in a little bit and talk about as far as again the cultivation side of cannabis that goes along with it. There's honestly a lot to be said is when we're talking about medical cannabis as well. I think well, there's a lot of angles why they want to take away the grow itself, but I think that growing far as PTSD and anxiety and stuff like that, there's a lot to be said about cultivation. Uh, as far as cannabis goes, I honestly think it's a 50-50 thing. You know what I mean? There's a weight in cannabis use as a medicine, but I think it widens quite a bit with cultivation and producing your own medicine. Something about that can do, you know what I mean? I'm doing
Oh,
for myself, producing for myself, and the time spent in the garden, I think, is very strong, very powerful, very healing in itself. And I would hate to see that being taken away as well, you know, through the medical threat, through the
yeah,
threat
that's really
creation.
concerning, honestly, because I don't even think like I'm on it. I don't think there's like a place I can say is like more peaceful than like just in a grow with the plants. Like it's like, and then just growing your own plants, you're just like in love, you know? It's like you just had a newborn baby and you're just like constantly going in and checking on your newborn baby and like just constantly like, you know, watching it grow and blossom and expand into something magical that is literally gonna like you're just like smelling it and contemplating like how it's gonna that what the high is gonna be like what's you know like just literally just I can't even describe it except for in that manner. It's that's what it reminds me of because like it's like you get a new baby and you're just like wanting to take pictures of it all day, you know, you want to like look at your little baby and like touch it, smell it, like you know, be around it and like watch it grow. That's literally how I feel about like weed. Like I'm just like, okay, like I just want to like see what happens tomorrow. You're like when I've like grown at other people's facilities, I will like have my like at Sub's place. Oh, my phone's gonna die. Like when I was working at Sub's place, I had a plant there and I would just literally like wake up first thing in the morning and I would go and I would run over to get ready, go to his place, run over to the grow, be just looking at my plant, like trying to see everything that was going on to with it, trimming it, figuring out, asking questions, something changed, who touched my plant, what's going on here, you know, just like literally treating it like it was like a child like literally treating it like it's a child. So you're just like you become consumed with it. And I think like there's like a beautiful thing in that. Like if you think about like how your children change you, you know, like when you have kids, you totally change. Like you go from like a person that's like no responsibility is in the world to all of a sudden now, you know, you're a parent, you know, you're responsible for a human life. So you go through these changes. And I feel like growing weed provides you with changes that are necessary. Like it really like mellows your mind in the sense to where you're like, okay, like I'm responsible for growing this plant and making this into something that's going to help heal people, help heal me, help me feel good. So you want to like put all of that good energy into it. You want to just like make it into like something amazing. And it's just like, if they took that away, you know, like that would just, I just wouldn't even want to think about that. It's just like not even imaginable, because it's like, you're right in the sense like the process is everything, like especially like when you're a grower, you know, you're a grower, you're just a grower, like you are, it doesn't even matter, like you're just, you've grown weed, you all of a sudden you're a grower, you know, it's like, yeah, I could grow weed, I can make it happen, like I know how to bud plants, like some better than others, but I can make it happen, I can grow weed. And then you just like start putting more and more of yourself into it, and you're like, yeah, like okay, I could grow pretty decent weed, you know, like, and then it just, all right, my weed's good, yeah, I could grow good weed. So like you go through these processes, so it's like, it is like a confidence builder. You're just like, yeah, like I can make shit happen. Like I can make medicine. Like I can literally heal people. And that's like humbling and also super empowering at the same time. And like I I would hope that they would want us to have that, you know, at least like on a certain level. In Canada, you know, I'm hoping that our growing would be a little bit more like Canada, and we'll be able to you know, most of Canada gets to grow, you know, they have growing license and they're allowed to grow, their patients can grow there. So you know, I'm hoping that like we are similar to them in a sense, you know, like we keep home growing alive, you know, like how they have it. They still have people checking on them and like counting their plants and showing up at their houses occasionally and like saying like, oh, let me do your plant count. But like at the same time, a majority of the people that I know that live in Canada, they grow out their fucking houses, you know? So I mean, I just couldn't see them being able to take that away from us on a massive level, you know, because we would just do it anyways.
I would hope so. I could only hope so. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna thank you so much for letting me on your show. It's literally been a fucking pleasure. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna get some rest. It's, what time is it here? Okay, it's only 11:55, but yeah, it is getting to be my bedtime. It was actually my bedtime kind of before the show started. I usually go to bed at like 9:30. I get stoned and then I just pass out. I have an 8-year-old, so his bedtime is pretty much my bedtime.
I greatly appreciate you taking time and hanging out and introducing yourself a little more thoroughly to the community.
Of
You
course.
are obviously very knowledgeable about the plant and very passionate about it as well. Uh, Basically, I'd like two things I'd like to go over with you before you go take on. The invitation that you were sent is the same invitation that I use for the Weed Nerd World, kind of carrying on, or trying to keep sub's memory alive as much as
Yeah.
possible. Basically, it's the panel show filler from whatever I told you, 11:30 to 4:20 nightly. So after this, I hope to get things rolling again with the Weed Nerd World, and that's only open to past guests. So obviously, you're a past guest. That Zoom link is now good for any Weed Nerd World. If you see it in the title, come join and hang out. I'm sure a lot of us would greatly appreciate it. One other thing I would like to get from you is the silly thing I do called the sound bite. Basically, it's like an old school radio identification type thing. My version would be something like, hey, this is Eagle, and I'm on fucking talking shit with Eagle, episode 591. You can put anything before or after that, as long as that's kind of got that in there. I'm ready. No.
Okay. Hi, I'm the Dab Hunter, and I'm on fucking talking shit with Eagle. And what else should I say? That's it. What's that?
Episode 591.
Oh yeah,
Other
yeah.
than
Okay,
that,
I'm gonna again. Okay, retake.
I'm the Dab
Good.
Hunter, and I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 591. Is that it? Yeah, like that.
That's it.
Cool.
Thank you.
I'm not like, I have like the worst memory, like short-term memory. Sometimes people will be like, yeah, like say this, and I'll forget like as soon as they stop talking. Like,
Well,
what was
thank
it?
you for your time. I
Thank
greatly
you. Oh,
appreciate it.
seriously, a pleasure. Like I really like just loved every second of it, and I definitely want to do it again. I will totally jump in again. Appreciate it. Have
For
a good night.
those of you too. For those of you tuning in, thank you for your time. Hopefully you know the deal by now. Random acts of kindness do save lives. Don't be afraid to do something nice for somebody. Have a good night.